Hello, I am GVN and he's ARB. We are here today to present our latest project, which is called Moving Castle. We're going to give a bit of presentation about ourselves and then about the project. But before we start, we just like a short line about what Moving Castle is. So we think of it both as a metaphor to describe a new type of organization and is also an ongoing series of live stream real-time game shows. Anything else?
Nothing else.
Nothing else for
Good
now.
to proceed, I think.
Proceed. Okay, so I'm GVN. My artist name is GVN. I'm a filmmaker. Used to work with traditional filmmaking, a lot of music videos. A couple of years ago, ARB or Arthur, Arthur introduced me, invited me to have a residency with Trust, which he's gonna explain what it is. And it was a time where I was transitioning from like traditional filmmaking and computer graphic to real-time cinema. And so I worked on a performance like a film performance in which I recreated like a room, like kind of like a gamer room, and I would have an iPad and I would film in real time around this room, and I would stream everything on Twitch, and people could, through the chat, input some commands. They could change like the weather condition, the time of the day, and some elements in the room, and my performance would like slightly change depending on their decisions. And so it was a first time where I tried to experiment with like these open formats and some kind of input from the audience. Funnily enough, after this stream, a band called 1975 asked me if they could shoot their music video inside the room that I made. And so we invited a bunch of artists to produce work like this teddy bear by 6 Foot Stranger, Hannah Stewart, and some other texture by Tissue Hunter. And for me, it was a moment where I realized, oh, this could be an interesting platform to think of how to produce and release works, because we can think of like this game environment as like open, like kind of like sort of even like gallery spaces in which more artists can like throw their work, and then we can like collectively kind of like shoot films or whatever kind of work. Yeah.
I'm ARB. That's nice. By the way, GVM, very nice work.
Very nice. I mean, 15 years in computer graphics.
I'm ARB. I'm one of the founders of Trust, where we're recording this today. We're actually sitting in front of a very similar green screen to what you're seeing here. And Trust is both a space in Berlin. It's a shared workspace where a bunch of people that work independently and together on different creative projects also work from. And we're a Discord community that is interested in kind of the overlap, or I would say, of aesthetics, politics, a lot of game interest more and more. And I think we occupy an interesting space between the kind of humanities and technological development. We've been working on stream formats within Trust and kind of community events for a while. Here are two screenshots. One on the left is a game format talk show we did a few years ago with Callum Bowden, Joanna Pope, and Steph Autreux, and me. And on the right is a reading group that Joanna Pope hosted. And we've been very interested in the idea of what does a cultural institution look like if we reevaluate some of the financing models, but also the way that the cultural content, quote unquote, is distributed. And we've also experimented with that. And I think from those shared interests in kind of decentralized institutions, crowd play, real-time cinema, and decentralized narrative and artistic production, also gambling, the Moving Castles is kind of created and started with a number of experiments, which we should talk a bit more.
Yeah, so I guess what's next? So like we both had like these kind of like different interests, and then eventually I moved to Berlin and we met, and Arthur had these two sketches of like a creature that he wanted to like play with and like experiment with, and so we kind of like assembled. Well, there was already like a 3D model.
I had tried for a lot of time to get this 3D model rigged, and the especially with face tracking, it was really hard.
Yeah.
And I needed someone with the skill set of GVN to come in and save me.
Likely.
Yes.
So we started from these two sketch, and we kind of set up this character in Unreal. We did like a whole face capture, like a very buggy but very like very hysterical at points face rig of this character, and we kind of like built a little world, and we decided that we wanted to have like kind of like a live show with this character, and so we set up a live show.
Yeah, and the live show also contained a few elements. It was mostly me playing computer games,
Yeah.
and doing readings, and then we also had a wheel of doom that people could spin by writing commands into chat, and they would win cups
Yeah.
that we sent with them with the character.
Yeah,
on it.
so we started with like the setup was like ARB, like or like Arthur controlling ARB, doing a bunch of stuff, and like playing a game and like reading a text that would correlate to the mechanics of the game, and then people again like continuing and building like a more complex infrastructure so that people could control, well, they could spawn themselves as like characters in the game, and they could like control again like both the environment and some props, some like some props in the game, like one of the wheel. Something that we realized as the the streams went by is that people were not only interested in seeing us playing the game, but it was also very, very interested in playing the games itself of the game world that we built.
Yeah.
And so I think like in the latest stream, it really became like we kind of lost a bit the reading, and we came to like play more and more with the world itself, and we implemented more complex mechanics. And then we have these images that you're seeing now. I think maybe it was the last stream.
Yeah, it's a compilation of different activities.
It was very chaotic, like.
And on the right side, you see the Twitch chat, which is like the way that the participants, whatever we call them, the players,
Yeah.
Participate or input commands is by just writing a chat.
And so it was the first of many experiments in like giving the viewers agency over the content of the artwork itself.
Yeah, and
Yeah. So yeah, after the stream, we like take some time to like think, could this become a new like media format? What could people do with it? And like, yeah.
Yeah, and we know that New Models did a talk, I think a year ago, where they explained the concept of the dark forest. But the idea is quite, maybe not simple, but it's basically the idea that the people are trying to get away from the ClearNet platforms and are creating these often Discord-based communities, which are now more and more growing into institutions of their own right. And what we are interested in with Moving Castles is the idea that when these institutions, these Discord communities, have to interact or produce media, that they do not replicate the kind of media production models of the ClearNet, which is often one voice that is speaking, but rather can we use the learnings from our previous streams to create a new media format, which is collectively produced and collectively controlled through inputs. And the vision of Moving Castles is kind of having this moving castle which is steered by hundreds of people at the same time.
Yeah, I think like these like, I don't know, for me it comes a lot also from like these type of formats come from the frustration I felt as a filmmaker to like not really know at some point where to publish my work anymore, because like the golden age of like Vimeo or like like quality content online was kind of disappearing, and like as I would make like music videos on YouTube, like I would always get notification of copyright infringement, even if like the content was mine and the label gave me the rights to obviously use all the songs. And so it felt like a very, like this ClearNet, it felt just like a very unfair and like unsustainable environment. And so like I think like, yeah, experimenting with these formats and experimenting with like some more private, intimate communities like on Discord, it's a very interesting way of rethinking where do we publish or where do we exhibit our work as artists. And so yeah, this is a small diagram of like a ClearNet, Forest, and Darknet that we took. Let me check. that we yeah, it was one of the starting point for our research. So I guess we started asking ourselves, so which way to go? Where do these formats stand and exist?
Yeah, and how does if we take trust as an example, for example, and there are other communities like this. We know that Omsk Social Club would also do a lecture as part of this format, and I would say they're also a Dark Forest community, or at least a Discord-based community. New Models are also like that, and there are many others. How do these communities produce media to interact with a public of sorts without having to resort to certain types of media production or certain platforms?
Yeah, and it's interesting because these communities are also like starting to have like quite influence in the cultural landscape. But like an issue maybe is also that like these communities are fragmenting, and it's hard to like travel between them, let's say, right? So that's something that we had in mind, and we started kind of researching, or we came across a lot of like like either like anarcho-punk or like 60s hippie architecture schemes, like Archizoom and Superstudio from like Archizoom from England, Superstudio from Italy, with the moving cities and with these inflatable temporary spaces that you could like set up and then deflate and like move to another space. And so we started to think about, could this be a metaphor for a new type of media? And this is
beautiful sketches by me.
This is an amazing sketch of what all the research came to. This is the first sketch, and this is the second sketch.
Yeah,
like
I was very convinced at this point that this was a great output. I must say it's been many years since I studied. I've become lazy with time, and GVN has held me accountable, thankfully.
So this was the second sketch, and then we started kind of develop 3D model to kind of visualize what the metaphor could be and how this metaphor could exist in a 3D game world. So some sort of these first sketches that then we put into our first post that was called
Moving Castles, Modular and Portable Miniverses.
Yes, exactly.
And it basically lays out the argument that we just made in terms of that Dark Forests need to connect to each other, that if there is the potential here for new cultural institutions to emerge, they also need to figure out what kind of media they want to produce and how that media does not replicate certain problematic tendencies of what we see today.
Yeah, and they also describe this new media format as a sort of hybrid between between like a simple text-based community like Discord, like a game, like a performance film, and you can read it on movingcastle.world. We are gonna have the link later, or it can be sent to everyone, I suppose. If you wanna dive, there's quite some to unpack, but.
Yeah, we were very happy to see that there was. It seems like the piece resonated a lot. So after that, we, together with Trust, thought, okay, let's explore that idea more in the context of Trust, and started ARC 1 with Trust, which is a number. It's both a kind of continuation of existing formats like the reading groups, but also especially relevant for this presentation, the experimentation on like what does a Trust moving castle look like, how do we build it together, and what are different like activities that can be used or can be facilitated using this technology.
Yeah, and also how can we build a world collectively through the community and like having like authorship kind of pushed to the whole community, and still have like valuable artworks. And so something that we did, we are trying to collaborate with artists in different ways, and so we kind of build some basic 3D models that all our game will share. The first one are like the cores, which are the player avatars that people can use to explore the moving castle world. And then we asked 5 artists, which are Power Studio, Peng Shu Cowboy, Par Gang, and Alfred Pietroni.
You forgot one, you as well. You said 5. You
4, sorry, 4.5. And I throw also a bunch of my work in there, and we just kind of make textures for these avatars that people can collect in the game, and I think that in the future, like they could also just become like artworks. But I think it's interesting to imagine like, if like these type of player avatars or these type of formats can become the platform where you release work. It's like, oh, I made a texture for that, like you used to make a painting. So we are experimenting with that things. We are like also like reworking ARB. So we are again asking like different artists to kind of give like their take on like some archetypes that we have. So like ARB, it's like the mascot archetype. So it's like the host of the games. So we ask, what's the name?
Gian.
Gianmarco. I don't remember the Instagram, but I will link it. Or Gian X Marco. That's the Instagram. Gian X Marco to like sketch, and I mean they made these amazing sketches, amazing and sexy also for mine.
Yes, truly bringing out the best parts of me.
And and then we went on into like bringing all these assets into the game world, and like again like adding layer of complexity. This was the first stream we made this season, which was a simple introduction to the world where first of all we would just like unpack what would happen during the season and how the game would work, and then people could spawn their characters, and if they made it through this path they would collect the artwork, and they would own the textures and the models, and they could use these in a bunch of different ways.
And then the next stream we did was a collective ritual where we started experimenting with the idea of kind of bringing things to life, or many people having to agree on something. And here the cores spawn a mascot called the Cobbler. By them typing a lot in chat. That was the stream.
Shit posting the chat.
Yes.
So this was a way to like kind of have us pre-produce some assets, and then have the community like choose or like kind of like randomize or procedurally generate the mascot that they will use to then play the game collectively. And it was also first time that we experimented like first person characters, so that the whole community controls one thing.
And then yesterday we did, I think, our biggest production yet, which is also why we might look slightly tired today.
Is the streamer.
The streamer exclusive. But thankfully we can hide behind our avatars normally. But yes, here the Trust community built kind of using a custom character creator for moving castles, could assemble different parts in stream. We had Puncture Cowboy draw this beautiful UI, and Finley Stewart helped with the 3D assets. And Will Freudenheim did a lot of the music, which you can't hear now. But basically, the Trust community yesterday built their first moving castle.
Exactly. So again, there's like a kind of like background research and background work building. We did like a lot of like session on the Discords where people could like input what they think their moving castle, so their world, the game world, should look like, and then we kind of like process that and ask artists to like process that with us, and then we produce pieces, and then we brought the pieces again to the community who would assemble their final representation. So there's this kind of like process of continuously like reiterating between the community.
On Thursday we will do another stream with the New Models community, where they will cobble their own moving castle. And then on the 14th we're doing kind of the first cross-community gameplay, where the New Models community, or the New Models moving castle, and the Trust moving castle will play games against each other using the core pachinko kind of dynamics from our first stream.
It's gonna be hell, but it's gonna be fun. So you should join. That's it. So see you on stream.
If you're interested, visit our website and join the 2 upcoming streams.
On the website you see there's a link to the Discord where we also like show all the production processes live, so it's also nice to maybe say that. And if you want to get in touch,
please
on
get
the
in touch.
Discord.
Bye bye.
Ciao.